Welcome to Adult Siblings Versus, a podcast where a grown-ass brother and sister put aside their childhood rivalry in order to review nostalgic pieces of pop culture. I'm your co-host, Jason S. Leverett.
And I'm your other co-host, Ariel Leverett.
All right, Ariel. I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Because I had to watch the movie we're watching today twice. As you know, I don't normally watch the movies that we're looking at more than the one time. I usually just watch it like the night before, and it's all still fresh in my memory. But our recording got delayed by a week, so I had to watch it again just to make sure I wasn't too far off. I know that you always have to watch this stuff twice in a row, so it's not like this is new for you. But I had to watch this movie, and I just really, I don't know. Give me a black towel and call me Taz, because fuck the world.
I gotta say, I'm frustrated because the timing in which I watched these movies, I was not able to drink while watching it, and that is a bummer.
Yeah, so today we are looking at Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, following up from last time where we did The Phantom Menace. Boy, this one. So we're gonna talk about it. Thankfully, I do not have anything close to the amount of stuff to talk about this week, so this should be more of a normal episode as opposed to me with an uncontrollable deluge of useless information and trivia. But I still feel like there's a void inside me caused by watching this film, so I'm having a little hard time focusing, so that might be a problem. But regardless, if you want to send an email saying how much you love Attack of the Clones and are a little unsure why I'm being so weird the intro of this episode, and you can email us at adultsiblingsversus@gmail.com.
Yeah, if you are an incel tech nerd with a collection of swords who feels very connected to Anakin, do not email us.
Oh, yeah. Oh god, yes, Anakin is such a fucking incel. Oh my god. You can X at us at x.com at Adult Versus. You can send us an X, and we'll look at your X on our X profile, and perhaps we'll X you back. And also, we're on Instagram at Adult Siblings Versus, which did not oddly change their name in recent times. So, also check us out on Facebook. We are there as well. All right, Ariel. Before I ask you, I'm gonna go ahead and play. Is it better than The Rise of Skywalker right now? Because I'll forget if I
Sure.
No.
No. It is not better. We'll get into it. It's bad.
Rise of Skywalker has too much plot. The Attack of the Clones doesn't have enough.
Yeah, there's good acting happening in Rise of Skywalker,
Okay, Rise of Skywalker has an extremely awkward and forced conversation between Rey and dead Carrie Fisher, and then Oscar Isaac says somehow Palpatine's returned, and that's pretty dumb. But that's kind of like it for horrible dialogue for that film, where the hits just keep on coming in this one.
Well, we'll get into it, but I'm not sure if I've ever written down more quotes while watching a movie for this podcast. There are so many times I was like, I need to remember this word for word to articulate why this is awful.
All right. So, Ariel, Attack of the Clones. So this came out in 2002. We'll talk about more of that in a second. So I'm in my scene. I guess I would have just graduated. Actually, when did this come out? Did this come out in May or did it come out in June? Let me just take a quick look. May. Yep. So I was about a month away from graduating high school. So you would have been about to graduate middle school.
Right.
So potentially still in that target audience. Maybe getting a little too old. But what is your nostalgia for this particular film, Ariel?
Well, never liked it. I remember disliking it at the time. I remember not liking the Anakin Padme stuff. And this is a person who is was not coming from like a knowledgeable place of like dynamics in like of romantic encounters. Like I didn't know nothing about dating or talking to guys or anything like that, but I knew that this stuff was stupid. And I remember also really hating lightsaber fighting, twisty, like spinny top Yoda. I remember being like really annoyed by that.
Yeah. Yes, I feel like I had the same reaction there with the Phantom Menace. I feel like I walked out of it the first time thinking that I had liked the movie, and then it was only with time and a couple more viewings that I realized actually this movie was pretty boring. I think I was just so happy to see Star Wars, so happy to see new Star Wars that I kind of let myself get blinded to that. Maybe this will come up again if we ever look at The Force Awakens. Anyway, but I remember actively hating this film in theaters. I remember walking out going like, "This was fucking bad." I think this is the movie that made me start questioning George Lucas as a director, because I was like, wait a second, how could the guy who directed all those great Star Wars movies direct this? And then I realized he didn't. He didn't direct all those other movies. He's only directed the one before Phantom Menace. So I was like, oh, okay, this is. George Lucas may not be a genius. I think that is unfair. I'll talk about that shortly. But the bottom line is, I never had any good feelings about this film. I've always felt it was bad, to the point that I'm just gonna say this now. There are people out there who name their kid after Anakin Skywalker, and I presumably, this is the movie that really encouraged them to do it, because like I'm not sure who's going to name their kid after whiny, like after like Yippee McGee, in the first one, and those people are weird because this guy sucks, and we'll talk about that more.
Yeah. Oh my god, I've never felt so bursting with opinions. It's very difficult.
All right, let's go ahead and start talking a little bit about the background of the film. I don't have like as much to say as last time, but this movie again came out in 2002, sequel to The Phantom Menace. George Lucas directed it. This time he wrote it with Jonathan Hales. Jonathan Hales did the only real rewrite outside of what Lucas was doing, and then that version was what went in. But I'm not sure how much Jonathan Hales is in the script. He was a TV writer. He didn't have a lot of movie experience, and I suspect that if Lucas had him look at it, it was more about like times than it was to try to make this, good. But the movie had a budget of $115 million, which is the exact same budget as the first one. When that one made over $1 billion, this one made $653.8 million, so considerably less. Now, this one also had a couple of re-releases, so that definitely contributed. But the fact is that this movie was just not as successful as the first one, even though it still made millions of dollars. And I think that every time they re-release the Star Wars films, I think the Phantom Menace always does pretty good, and then there's like a steep drop off whenever they release like the next ones. I think people remember, oh, I don't actually like the prequel trilogy, and so that's probably why there's such a big gap between like the 600 here and the $1 billion with Phantom Menace. I don't think it has anything to do with quality, aside from the quality that made people upset at the first film. But there you go. So let's talk about what went into this movie. So, Phantom Menace came out, and it made a ton of money. However, critical response was not super good, and a lot of people were very mixed about what they'd seen. And the general consensus was that this was not worth the giant amount of hype that had come. The hype machine had really overdone it, didn't live up to it. And this is kind of like the first time that Star Wars had like a proper backlash from fans. Now, Empire Strike Back actually had its fair share of detractors, to the point that there was like a fan club dedicated to sending letters to Lucas to explaining him why The Empire Strikes Back was so bad.
Huh.
Everything I read in that letter was the exact same stuff people said about The Last Jedi.
It's very funny.
It is pretty funny. And then The Return of the Jedi legitimately had a bit more mixed reaction than the previous two, but none of those was anything compared to what happened with The Phantom Menace. Like there's a lot of people who complain about Star Wars fandom these days, and they are correct. They are correct. Star Wars fandom in the modern time are toxic and really problematic, especially if you're a woman, and especially if you're a woman of color.
Yeah. Good God.
However, this moment when the Phantom Menace came out was probably the first time that toxicity kind of rears ugly head. So if you ever had someone said, "Oh, the Phantom's so much worse now," probably not, because like they tore up this movie really badly. They viciously verbally attacked the stars, specifically Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best got it really bad. And Lucas got it really bad. Like, I don't think Lucas had ever gotten this sheer amount of contempt thrown at him after a Star Wars film before. And I don't think he really knew what to do with it. Like, Lucas is already not like I'm just going to go ahead and assume, being a person who is neurodivergent, I'm going to assume that Lucas himself is not neurotypical. I think that's based on what I've seen of him, what I've heard of him, and how I see him interact with other human beings. I'm going to assume that there's something going on there, much like there's something going on with me, but probably not the same thing. But in any case, I just don't know if he knew how to handle it. That is not the type of thing that he would really know. His response to some of the criticism was bad. It was basically saying like, this banana is bad, and his response is, well, Rome was a bad empire, so you should probably stop talking. Like, it's like stuff that just like that doesn't that is probably also true, but that is not negating what my initial problem with this banana is. So that's kind of an issue. But regardless, because it was so successful, the machine is turning. Lucas has been trapped in the machine since he decided to move forward with this new trilogy. He's still in it at this point. So the next script has to happen. Now, if you recall, last time he didn't have a proper concept of the script and the story for the first movie as a direct result of him deciding that he couldn't have a flashback, and therefore the whole movie had to be about the origin of Anakin Skywalker. And that movie, you can kind of look, and it's a weird way you look at it, and it's the prequel to the actual prequel trilogy, except that the prequel trilogy is missing a movie. So, but because he took so many elements to make The Phantom Menace, now this movie, which is supposed to be the proper beginning of his saga, now doesn't have enough stuff. So he's trying to like throw more stuff out, and he's like trying to figure out how to get it all written. And he's got the deadline's coming up, and he's not writing enough, and it gets to the point that they actually have to start pre-production and even principal production without a full script.
He's throwing spaghetti at the wall, and I'm gonna tell you, it ain't al dente.
No, yeah, well, sure enough. So just from the beginning, it's already kind of a shit show, and it's very telling, because I can tell you right now, Revenge of the Sith is significantly better about its plot, probably because he had that plot kind of already figured out, and it's these first two movies where he's just kind of scrambling. He knows that this movie has to be about a love story between Anakin and Padme. He knows that it has to lay down foundations for what's going to happen in the next movie. So Anakin has to be foreshadowed to fall. Whatever mechanism is going to cause Palpatine to create the Empire has to be seated now. This stuff all has to happen. So he's got a framework, but not enough. So on the bright side, an interesting thing is that I don't know if I mentioned this too much. In the first movie, there was experimenting with digital film for it. This is something that they filmed it in both film and digital, I believe. But after it went pretty well, Lucas just decided, no, we're all in. We're all in. Episode 2 is going to be completely digital. And the film community and the traditionalists heavily criticized him for it. They were really like judging him for it. But to his credit, and this is something that I actually really admire about Lucas, is that he stuck to his guns. He felt that their criticism was proof that he might have been on the right track, because he is an experimentalist. He's an experimental filmmaker. He always has been. So the idea that he sees the value in digital and all his contemporaries are saying it's garbage makes him feel like, well, I guess I'm just going to be the first guy to do it then. I'm just gonna gonna put that stuff up there, and you're all being like, oh, what's going on? You guys are behind. Well, what happened there? Oh, look at me. I'm sitting on these fat stacks of digital money. So this digital allows special effects to be added easier and cheaper than they would have been with film. And then also, you don't have to wait for film to get back to you before you can review stuff that you shot. You shoot something, you can immediately look at it, and you can immediately tell there's a problem, and then you can immediately fix it. This would make the production smoother and cheaper than it would have been. That's probably why, even though this film looks 1,000 times better than the Phantom Menace, it's actually still the same budget. So, that I think Lucas was right. Lucas was 100% right about digital film. Now it's used all the time. People using regular film, that's the norm, and those movies show up at like the music box, and so it's all very exciting, but they're still kind of like, once in a while type things. Unsurprisingly, because of how interested he was in doing this tech, he decided, yeah, I'm going to direct the next two movies anyway. Like his original plan was that he would direct the first one, like he did the first one in the original trilogy, and then someone else would direct the other two. But he loved the idea of working with this tech so much, he decided, let's just keep on track, keep on the boat. We're gonna keep steady course down the technology realm. And while I don't think it benefited the movies, I can't help but respect him for doing that. One last thing I want to mention here before I turn it over to you, Ario, this is something that I meant to mention last time, but I just forgot, didn't have enough time. And this kind of goes off of this. This is my respect for Lucas. Now, we're going to say a lot of bad things about this movie. Like, it's just going to happen. And the next time, we're going to say some bad things about that film. Not as much, probably.
Not as much.
But our general consensus is going to be that Lucas is not a great writer, and he is not a great director. At least he's not a great actor-director. He's actually good at almost every other aspect of directing when it comes to like getting good shots and conceiving effects, right? But just too bad that this is a emotional core at the base of this film that messes up. But my point is that no matter what we say about Lucas or how much we criticize him, he is an artist, and these films are his art. So a few years from 2002, like maybe 10 years in the future, when Disney buys Star Wars, even though I generally dislike the prequel trilogy, I knew that no matter what Disney did, we were going to lose that artistic touch. And that's something I think we need to appreciate about these films. It's not good, but it is art. And without George Lucas making his art, and with it being backed by a billion-dollar corporation, it's always going to have a certain sense of soullessness that these movies aren't going to have. They have soullessness based on the wooden acting. It's a different problem. But I don't know that we have a right to criticize Lucas as an artist, because the alternative is a factory churning out Star Wars. Some of it's good, some of it's not good.
I will say, because I do think that he has created a very interesting world, and I do agree that he does know how to like highlight the look of that world in beautiful ways. And so that is cool. And I'd like to think that, like, while a lot of the stuff that is created in Star Wars doesn't necessarily have that same art touch, I do think that the stuff Dave Filoni makes, I think there is a similar love for the world.
I agree.
And I think that is one place where I think that you can still find the art within Star Wars content.
I will point this out. Perhaps because even now, Filoni still has to answer to several masters. Where
Yeah.
before he only had to answer to Lucas. When he did the Clone Wars, Lucas was still there. Like
Yeah.
Lucas was working with him. It was not. It was probably a more. I don't want to say collaborative, but like a less combative version of the last two of the original trilogy, where someone else was holding the reins and Lucas was above him. But then, like, there was combat in the second one, and then Lucas basically ghost directed the third one. I think the Clone Wars, I think it is a similar thing, except that I think Filoni had more freedom
Yeah.
and there's less resentment there. So I think that Filoni is also probably like the most Star Wars-y person after Lucas. So I think you have a point, but I do think there's a difference between Clone Wars Dave Filoni and whatever Dave Filoni was technically a producer on the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's hard because in the end that is someone else's, creation. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah. But I will say, like, as far as like Clone Wars go, I think it's a good example of like the foundation that George Lucas made was good. Like, there are so many things from Phantom Menace and from Attack of the Clones, like just background characters or just places and features, like all these kind of things that that like Dave Filoni then kind of like ran with the help of George Lucas to add to Clone Wars, and it becomes so interesting. And so it's like the stuff is there, just basically just being able to collaborate. I feel like it's the biggest thing, and I think that's the thing that is missing with these movies is just like, if he just hadn't been like, well, I really gotta steer this and do it all me, like I think there could have been a chance for it, because we kind of see what happens when you do have someone who can kind of lean into those other aspects that he is weak in and make good stories with the things that he has created. And he's just saying.
I think that what you're saying is definitely correct. I think we already knew this. I think that even looking at the Empire and Return of the Jedi, we could see that, right? Where they're both better formed movies than the original Star Wars.
So I wish he had remembered that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had reasons that he decided to go on his own on this one. Some of them were not his fault. Some of them were definitely his fault. But, it is, the consequences have happened. Anyway,
Yeah.
Let's move on. So, Ario, I watched this film, but about halfway through, I noticed 2 poisonous slugs that climbed into my bedroom, and, well, let's just say that I don't have an incel Jedi waiting for me outside my my door, so I'm actually a Force ghost, and I didn't watch the second half of the film. So how about you go ahead and talk about what happened in this movie?
For some reason, you didn't like him watching you sleeping.
I didn't. It was weird. It made me feel uncomfortable.
So this bitch, we start with our kind of title role stuff. Basically, the galaxy is thus that several thousand solar systems are planning to leave the Republic. I have a lot of opinion. Like, I mean, I feel like the Republic was destined to not be successful. I don't understand how the Republic could actually run and function. It makes no sense. Several thousand solar systems are planning to leave the Republic. You have too many people, too many sovereign systems under this umbrella, doomed to fail. But the Republic's like, no, don't leave, blah, blah. And so they got to think of what to do about these people trying to, the separatists, as they will soon be called. And they're thinking about maybe putting a lid on it with an army. Meanwhile, we have Padme and her crew. She is now Senator Amidala. She's still doing her same bodyguard stunt double thing, although like she's not in makeup, so I feel like it's a lot easier for people to be like, I don't think it's you, but whatever. She has an attempt on her life. This kind of makes the Senate go like, we gotta protect her, and Palpy, he's still the chancellor doing his thing, and he gets a bright idea of like, well, we could have some Jedi, keep an eye on her, keep her safe. I think, you know Obi-Wan, don't you? And some other guy, I suppose, who would come along with Obi-Wan. That would be good. You could be protected by friends.
Yippee McCoy, I believe his name was.
Yeah, little Yippee McGillicuddy. He's a man now. So Obi-Wan and 19-year-old Anakin Skywalker are put on the case.
19-year-old Anakin Skywalker, young, dumb, and full of force.
Oh my God. Any hoops. So they're keeping an eye on her. There's a bounty hunter about with a sidekick bounty hunter trying to kill her. They kind of split ways where something's going on Camino, along with something's going on with this bounty hunter. Also, we gotta keep Padme safe. So Obi-Wan is gonna basically follow the Camino plot, and Anakin is gonna follow protecting Padme plot. Also, the Can You Feel the Love Tonight plot. Obi-Wan goes to Camino. It turns out there is it's a cloning facility, and they've made a bunch of clones for some Jedi named Sifo Dyas. Isn't this for you? Don't wink wink. All these clones are made from one guy, a bounty hunter named Jango Fett, who seems to be still in business doing bounty hunting, even though he's probably like making a lot of money being like clone daddy. But I guess,
hey, you know what? If you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
Honestly, I guess he just bounty hunts for fun. Just to, take his kid around the world. By kid, we mean Boba Fett, who is...
Although technically speaking, I know you hadn't gotten to this point yet, but technically speaking, he's not bounty hunting right now. He is acting on orders from his superior in the conspiracy that he's involved with.
I guess. It just happens that he has bounty hunter skills that are useful in this scenario. That is fair. The powers that be are trying to get Padme off the board. Meanwhile, Anakin and Padme are at summer camp on Naboo. He keeps having bad dreams about his mom, and he's like, I've got to go to Tatooine and see my dear mama who seems in pain. And so she's like, I'm totally going with you because you're practically my boyfriend. And so they go to Tatooine. We also have like a lot of chasing happening with Obi-Wan and Jango Fett. He goes to a planet where he finds all the separatists doing their separatist thing, and we get introduced to Count Dooku, which we'll get into later. He gets captured. He needs help. Anakin kills a bunch of people, and it's totally fine. No harm done. They go to rescue Obi-Wan. All the other Jedi go to have a super fight, and we also bring in the clones because now we're just like, it's fine. We do need soldiers.
Send in the clones. Those shooty booty clones. That probably could have been a stinger.
It's very good. The funny thing is, it's just like, what do I associate with that more? Like actual Sondheim or The Simpsons? Gotta say Simpsons. Sure. Even with all the musical theater, it's still The Simpsons. Yeah. In the end, the battle is won. Anakin got his arm chopped off by Count Dooku, who definitely has Sith lightning powers. Whoa.
God, that's actually very confusing. I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, it's not weird that he does it, but like the context is weird. And I'll explain what I mean.
Yeah. Padme's like, you know what? I soups love you, you moody little bitch. Let's get married. And so that's kind of where we're at. The Clone Wars have begun, and secret weddings are happening in the shadows.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think this movie looks considerably better than Phantom Menace as far as the effects go, and I feel that they aged way better than the Phantom Menace, even though they're only separated by like 3 years. I think looking at the Phantom Menace, most of it looked like ass. looking at Attack of the Clones, only some of it looks like ass. Like usually when a live action character is depicted as a temporarily as a CG character to do something that they decided not to have a stuntman do, like when Anakin is riding that weird herd animal when they're at summer camp, and it's something that looks really bad, kind of not dissimilar to that fight scene in the Two Towers where like those orcs show up on those like hyena monsters, and then
It made me think of, especially like when they're they get they kind of, once they're captured by the separatists, the Geonosis, they kind of have like a almost like a gladiators type situation where they're like battling big old monsters, and once again, Anakin is riding a big bull thing. There were definitely moments with that where like the CGI wasn't great, and it kind of reminded me of. It's not as bad, not as nearly as bad, but it kind of reminded me of Harry Potter, like the first one, when they're like on the troll, and you're just like, that was horrible CGI. But
but like I feel like generally it's pretty good. Like I know like there was like a wide shot of a couple of wide shots of Coruscant in the first movie that just looked like a PS1 video game. Where in this movie Coruscant looks beautiful. Like it is very well realized here, and clearly Industrial Light and Magic learned a lot doing that first movie and got a lot better in this one.
well, you know, you watch Blade Runner, you're like, I'm ready to make some pretty stuff.
Yeah, sure. I didn't know what to think about it at the time, but now I've decided I love Dex's Diner.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy it's here.
I agree.
I wish I had remembered that during the Book of Boba Fett when people were getting mad about the mods.
Oh yeah, with their little funky scooters. Yeah, there is precedent for it.
Yeah, listen up, motherfuckers. If Dex can have a diner in Coruscant, then these guys can be the mod squad. All right, it's okay.
I was definitely thinking like in that diner, I was like, was that droid like programmed to be a sassy waitress, or did she just naturally become a sassy waitress?
You know, I don't even understand how programming droids works.
Yeah.
Like, it's very confusing, and I think this is not the time to get into it. Maybe if we ever talk about Solo, that'd be a good opportunity to go deep diving it, since it's the only movie that even comes close to touching on it. I think some of the actors, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but some of the actors' performance went beyond the material and ended up being enjoyable. I like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Although I feel like he has a lot to fight against. I feel like
he's fighting against a lot,
because they have written him to be really fussy, and I feel like he has to work hard against his script.
When he's by himself, I think he's really good. It's really only when he's with Anakin that it's not good. But that's not even the performance's fault. That is just him doing by the script. You can't have such a good performance that your character is somehow less confrontational.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I definitely feel like they wrote Obi-Wan like to his detriment. Like I don't know why they decided to make him lecturing and lame. It's weird.
I know why, but like my point is not to talk about like the performance specifically, but just that I think that Ewan McGregor, much like, oh man, why am I blanking on the guy's name? Much like Liam Neeson in the last film, I think kind of gives the performance that's above where the content, and I think that, oh god, I'm blanking on everybody's name right now. Ugh, this is embarrassing.
Character name?
No. Christopher Lee. I think Christopher Lee, same way. Christopher Lee, who's barely in this film, his Count Dooku is tremendous. Like, he is a tremendous screen presence.
I am looking forward to talking about Dooku and his performance because we'll talk about it.
Yeah, Frank Oz kind of in the same way. Ian McDermott's kind of the same way. I think Samuel L. Jackson could have, except that Samuel L. Jackson is like, playing so against type. That's a little hard to really see Samuel L. Jackson do that unless he kind of goes more towards where he's more comfortable, which is a different character than what Mace Windu is. But I think generally speaking, if it's not the less experienced actors doing the badly written romance, I think it's impressive to see what some of the other actors are doing.
I don't know if we'll have time for this. I don't want to forget the thought that I kind of have in relation to Samuel L. Jackson and this character.
Yeah, sure.
It just kind of makes me think, when like someone is like, say, like an English actor is doing an American accent, and this also goes vice versa, but and like they're working so hard to try to do the accent that like they don't get far enough with the actual acting because like half of their acting is them trying to do this accent. I kind of feel that energy here, but it's like instead of like trying to like maintain an accent, he's like holding back like motherfuckers and like motherfucker like personality. And it's hard. It's hard to hold that in.
I think that's probably I think it's a valid point, especially considering like the movies he's most famous for at this point. In fact, Pulp Fiction was only just a couple years before Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
But yeah. I got a little bit to say about Mace Windu, but I'll hold it in. All right. I'm trying to think of anything else I like about this movie before I turn things around. I want to say that no, can I even remember the guy's name? Ugh, I cannot. Okay, whatever. Oh, wait. No, let's just talk about the characters. He doesn't actually do anything. Okay, God, so many characters are in here that I want to talk about that they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Like who plays Lars? I'm blanking on the guy's name.
Oh, the dad? Oh, I don't have that written.
No, not Clive Lars. Owen Lars.
Oh, duh.
Joe Edgerton. Like, he's an example. Joe Edgerton is a really good actor, and eventually he's going to give a really good performance of Owen Lars. He just doesn't do it in this film, and he's also not famous yet.
Yeah, there are multiple times it's like, it's a good thing you got these people in relatively early on so you could use them later. I'm happy that he comes back because I very much enjoy him in Obi-Wan, but anyway.
Yeah, okay. All right, so there's a lot of things wrong with this movie, and I'm not even sure if I have the ability or the patience to go through every single thing. But I will say right now, the two big problems with this film is that it is an incredible series of bad lines, and that combined with the fact that the two principal leads are extraordinarily wooden and yet are supposed to be in this romance together is just one of the least believable things I've seen in the film. The crux of this movie and the enjoyment of this film hinges on this being a romantic story that you can get behind, and on almost every conceivable level, it does not work.
There were a couple of times where I actually wondered if they were filming at the same time.
Oh my God. That's the joke I was making to my wife. I was saying, like, I'm pretty certain that there was never a time that they were in the same room together because that's how bad their chemistry was.
Yeah. It was, okay, speaking of Music Box, I actually saw Boogie Nights for the first time a couple weekends ago because there was...
Oh, hey, were you surprised by the touch being in that movie?
Yeah. Boogie Nights is... I don't know if you know this, but Boogie Nights is real good, y'all. Have you seen Boogie Nights?
I haven't seen it since it came out, and I was too young to watch it. I don't know what Dad was thinking.
Yeah, that's crazy. But like, upon watching that, and then like watching this movie, I just like, especially I was thinking about like, particularly the scene that they have, Padme and Anakin like in the one room in like the dark. They're like by the fireplace and talking, and their lines are so wooden, and it's very much like, oh no, we mustn't. And it was just like, this feels like it's like the start of a porn. Like this feel like it really does feel like sex happens now, because like that is how bad they act. And I was just like, it did make me wonder. It was like I'm sure there is inevitably probably many Attack of the Clone porn versions, and I do wonder which one has better acting.
Maybe not as many as you think, because we're 2002. It wasn't quite the porn internet that we are used to now. So the idea of doing parodies is probably like, fun thing to do, but then it's too expensive to do like a bunch of ones. You just make one and that's the parody, and it's like they store it away in some back room of a video store.
I should rewatch Zack and Miri make a porn.
Anyway, yeah, like the two of them talking, like they don't talk like humans. Like this is the first problem. They don't talk like humans, so the dialogue isn't compelling. It's not believable as these guys are in a whirlwind romance. It seems like Padme hates Anakin, and I feel like she has every right to do so.
Yeah.
If she feels that way.
She should hate. He sucks.
But then also because we know that George Lucas is not a actor's director, we know that he is not giving them proper direction to really convey the proper emotion to touch the audience. And I know Natalie Portman is a good actor. I've seen her in many things. But again, she's still a relatively inexperienced actor at this point, so I don't think that she has the ability to like kind of rise above the material the way that some of her co-stars are. Now, I have seen Hayden Christensen in considerably less things. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything that wasn't Star Wars. So I don't have as much proof that he is a good actor, but I am willing to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I know that he was in this like Italian restaurant rom-com-y thing that was bad enough to be featured on How Did This Get Made?
Well, to be fair, sometimes good movies get featured on that.
I don't think this is one of those examples.
I don't know. This is one. But my point is that I'm willing to say that it was probably the direction, not necessarily Hayden Christensen's ability as an actor, that was the problem here. But I just couldn't buy it. And then add the fact that the way that they were written, not even just what they were saying, but the way they were written, is just like, does George Lucas like have any experience with women? I know he does. I've seen his rogues gallery of girlfriends, so to speak, or significant others, we'll say. So I know that he understands the concept of what two people do when they are into each other are like. But the love story here comes to be like, teenaged Anakin Skywalker, who has probably never even been in the same room as a girl, let alone kiss a girl, has been like all this pent up horniness that he's had for this girl for 10 years. And then as soon as he sees her, he basically blurts out just a consistent like menagerie of the worst things you could possibly say to a woman you haven't seen in a while. Like short of sniffing her hair and explain to her what a nice guy he is. Like, he is awful. And then meanwhile, Padme, who's supposed to be this mature and very serious senator, is responding mostly the way you'd think of. Like, I think of you as that little boy from Tatooine. I don't like the way, I don't like the idea of you watching me sleep. I don't like the way you're looking at me. This is inappropriate. That's this type of stuff. But then secretly, under all that, she's actually thinking like, man, I love to break off me a piece of that for some reason.
And like she's 24. 24. So like you think about like in the realm of like college and like that 19-year-old who is like a freshman or sophomore in college and the 24-year-old who is a couple of years out. Who would have time for this? Like, who would have time for, like, what 24-year-old would have time for that fucking personality? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I will say I've been reading a lot more Reddit in the last couple of years, and I just like a lot of relationship advice / am I the asshole?
Oh, God.
That sort of thing. And what I've learned is that it's a lot more common than I realized, that exact scenario that you put up. But even so, the way that the movie wants us to think Padme is doesn't make sense that she would be interested in what we see Anakin do. Like, Anakin literally does nothing the entire movie that I think anyone would find attractive. Let alone Padme, unless Padme had secretly nursed a crush on a 10-year-old this whole time, which like, I mean, I've been saying this like kind of stuff since the last episode, which I feel like I got stifled a little bit, but like here we are. Well, no, I mean, like, I don't think that was supposed to be the case.
I don't think it's supposed to, but like, this is what happens when you write a story this way.
Yeah, no, it is. But I don't think that makes any sense for this movie either. I just can't think of any other explanation as to why she'd find him attractive.
Because like, here's the thing. Because like, here's what I wrote down to try like think of like what I see with the way Anakin interacts, like how he interacts with Padme, particularly in the beginning when she's like, "Don't look at me like that. It makes me uncomfortable," and he just kind of glares and kind of grins like, "Yes, my lady," blah, blah, blah. And I said that his energy is a rapey high school boyfriend who pressures you into sex and definitely refuses to wear a condom. He is a monster.
Okay, so we could probably talk about this for a million years. Bottom line is, this romance is bad. And then when, when Padme gives her confession and see how she's so deeply in love with him right before they get sent out to the arena, I could not tell you a line in the history of cinema that I bought less than that.
I was so sad about that because, like, the beginning of that moment when, he's like, they're about to go out and he's just like, we're about to die anyway, whatever, blah. And, like, Padme looks at him, she's just like, "I'm not afraid to die." And I'm like, and for a moment you're like, and she's like, she's looking very serious. You're like, badass. And there's a long pause. And then she goes, "I've been dying a little each day since you came back into my life." You're like, son of a bitch. It's like, you were so close. You were so close to letting her just be cool. And like, I was so mad. Why couldn't it just be like, "I'm not fucking afraid to die"? Even if that did even turn into her kissing him because she's about to die anyway. Whatever. But to add in and say, "I've been dying a little each day since," it's like, what? Why? I mean, dying a little because your stares are so gross that... Another good example. I'm sorry, I can't. You know what? This is where we are. There was a lot of information that you went through for the first movie, and now this is my time for my rants.
Like, I wasn't judging. I wasn't
Thank you.
Telling you to stop.
Thank you so much. Another example of Anakin's gross high school problematic boyfriend shit when they're at their little at their little sleepaway camp, which also the idea, like, Padme is so fucking privileged. The idea that she's like, "Oh, we used to camp at this like beautiful resort thing when we were in school." It's like, oh yeah, of course you became a freaking queen of the planet at age 13, 14. I mean, the amount of like grooming she and whatever circles she has been a part of must have been ridiculous. But anyway, when they're talking and they're like looking at the water and he's saying stupid shit. Oh, he's saying his like I don't like sand speech, the infinite meme. There's all the memes just came flooding back. But you know, he's saying his don't like sand, whatever. And he's like, it's coarse and gross and like not soft like you. And he like does that stroke of her shoulder, all gross. When my actual boyfriend does that to me, I'm like, I wish you wouldn't. And that is a person I actively love. And like the fact that she's like, yeah, this is fine. And they kiss, and then she's like, no, we mustn't. And like, Anakin goes, oh, I'm sorry. And he gives the biggest, what the fuck face I have ever seen. Like, if there's a moment to just like re-examine, like his reaction face to her turning down that kiss is legit. Like, why'd you get me horned up if you're not gonna let me kiss you? What the fuck? Like, that is literally his face.
Do you think that Anakin Skywalker listens to Andrew Tate? He's an Andrew Tate fan.
Yes.
So like I gotta mention, all the stuff that we're saying does not include the two elephants in the room of him being like, you know, I think fascism is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then him killing a ton of people, slaughtering men, women, and children, and then feel real bad about it. And then
does he though? I don't think he feels bad about it.
No, he feels bad that he doesn't feel bad. That is what he's actually saying. Like, he's saying, I'm a Jedi, I should be better than this. And but the fact is that Padme is sitting right there as he explains how he murdered children, defenseless people in rage, and she's just like, this is just making me love him more, I guess.
Let me go through this moment, because this is one of the things that I had to quote a lot, because I was just like, what the fuck? So, he has come back with Shmi, her body. They've buried her. He's tinkering and fixing things, and he's being moody and upset. Padme goes, what's wrong, Anakin? Because he was like yelling about like how like Obi-Wan's holding him back, and he throws a thing and being fussy.
Yeah, he turns his angst into his mother's death, and what he did those people into a chance, and yet another opportunity to complain about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, it's like, I'm so mad at my fake dad. But like, in response to that, Padme goes, what's wrong, Annie? He just watched his mom fucking die. What do you mean, what's wrong? What do you think he's gonna be like? Man, I didn't sleep great, and I'm just kind of fussy. Like,
you know, in her defense, that's what the Jedi would say to him too.
Well, the Jedi. Okay, I'll get. There's so many. It's the worst episode ever. Okay. So he goes, you know, I killed them. They're dead. They're the deadest thing ever because I killed them with murder. And he's like, I slaughtered them all. Women, no, not just the men, the women and the children, like animals, because they are animals. He says those things. I hate them. He literally just said, I slaughtered children like animals because they are animals. The next thing that she says in response to that is, to be angry is to be human. Bitch! He just said he murdered a bunch of children, and you're like, hey, guy, we all get angry sometimes.
Oh, in the deleted scene of the Phantom Menace is like, you know, when after the Gungans help out, she immediately orders the bombing of their city.
Honestly, because like that's my response. Because like it is weird their the rest of like Naboo's relationship with the Gungans, and I have wondered, is this like, are you racist? Are you racist towards the Gungans? Because this is a weird dynamic, and this makes me go like, is Padme racist?
It's like, oh, he slaughtered those sand people. Good thing they're just sand people and not real people.
Like, honestly, because like her complete this character who is supposed to be so caring and considerate of life and people's rights, and the idea that someone that you, I guess, love has just murdered a bunch of people. Because it's like, because I think about, like, okay, if someone, like, okay, if I knew, like, someone who, someone I know, like, his mom gets, like, murdered by a bunch of, like, good boys, you know, like, some kind of, like, crazy, like, militia, and he gets super angry and, like, goes to, like, the playground where, like, those horrible guys, like, children play, and, like, just kill everyone there with, like, a big old shotgun. And it's like, yeah, I didn't just kill, like, that stupid, like, right-wing militia. I also found their families and killed all of them and killed their children. I would not be like, well, yeah, those guys did kill your mom, so it seems about right. That's not how that works. That's not how that works.
Now, I do want to talk more about Anakin when we get to characters, but I think that for the purposes of what we're saying right now, this is like a really weird and bizarre thing for Padme to be okay with, on top of all the other stuff that we've complained about with this romance. So, like, this is literally insane. This whole romance between the two of them is not just bad, it's insane, and it makes the movie completely, like, unwatchable as a result, because so much of the crux of the film is surrounded on this insane love story that just makes no fucking sense unless we accept that Padme is evil, which the movie does not agree with.
Yeah, it is not a view that the Star Wars universe takes, but, like, this never gets explained away. Like, everyone just, like, all the writing just kind of chooses to not really mention this again.
Yeah, this never comes up again. They never talk about this scene. I don't even think it comes up in the next movie.
Yeah. And I will say,
oh, this is so weird.
And, like, speaking of the Jedi with this, because Yoda feels this.
Oh my
And he
God.
goes, I feel pain and hate and suffering. Anakin's in pain. So, like, he's feeling that something is happening. I guess presumably he can't tell that the pain and suffering and death is not, I guess he can't tell that's being fucking caused by Anakin.
I guess not.
And, like, but, like, hey, where's the fucking follow-up to this? How are you gonna have a moment where you're like, I can feel this incredible pain and suffering from, like, one of my students, employees, what do you call it? And I am not even going to check up on what the fuck that was.
It is not just this, but this is an important part of, like, this whole sequence. Like, because Yoda, like, what the fuck? Why, if they were worried about him being too old for this very thing might happen, and then he feels it and then doesn't ask any questions, is weird. But then, like, later, Obi-Wan, who's a lot closer to the situation, is like, oh, I better contact Anakin. Wait, he's on Tatooine? What the blazes is he doing on Tatooine? And as soon as he said that, I'm like, you know goddamn well what he's doing on Tatooine. Yeah. You know for fucking sure that he's been dreaming about his mother in pain. So if he's on Tatooine, it's because the first chance he got, he went to Tatooine to rescue his mom. And the fact that you seem confused by this is ridiculous. And that also means that Yoda and Obi-Wan do not have a conversation about this. Yoda does not go to Obi-Wan and go like, hey, man, I heard that I could sense that Anakin was in trouble, like having some emotional disarray. Is everything okay? And then Obi-Wan would say, well, you know, now you mentioned it, he was on Tatooine. Oh, man, do you think that maybe he had something going on with his mom? We should probably find out, because he's so powerful that it's really bad to leave him emotionally unchecked teenager who's the most powerful Jedi in the universe unsupervised.
Yeah. Like, judging by their interactions, and maybe maybe part of it is Obi-Wan's own worry about being an inadequate teacher that is keeping him from, I guess, addressing it. But, like, I mean, Anakin is such a, like, a little, like, dick to him. And like, he has these flare-ups of anger and disobedience and, like, all this kind of stuff. And, like, this isn't nothing. Like, you remember, like, you can't forget, like, what was said when he was first brought to the council. Like, this does matter. It doesn't make any sense that no one is keeping track of this stuff and keeping an eye on how he's doing. Like, it is so frustrating that, like, basically through all of this, Yoda is just, I was half waiting for him to say, I'm getting too old for this shit. Like, that's kind of his whole vibe with this movie.
First of all, my headcanon is in the first movie when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are talking to the council about Anakin, because he's just the Padawan. Obi-Wan is just kind of spaced out through all that conversation and only pipes in when he hears his name. It's like, man, I missed it. I missed that Mandalorian girl I used to date. Yeah, I'm ready for the trials. I'm definitely ready for the trials. Yeah.
I mean, I've been there, so I guess here we are.
Yeah. But yeah. I don't know if I fully agree with your reasoning. About like why Obi-Wan didn't bring it up, because maybe he's ashamed.
And I don't think that's like fully, but I wonder if that might be part of it.
Well, the reason that I don't think so is because he basically called himself out in a way by admitting to Yoda and Windu that, you know, he doesn't trust Anakin to handle an assignment on his own because his abilities have just made him too arrogant. And that was just like the first step there. I mean, like, if he's admitting that he's not been able to curb his ego, then that's not too far away from saying, like, and also he's snippy with me.
That is something.
But they shut him down. They shut him down about that. And Yoda kind of implies that he's arrogant too. Like, he's like, oh, a trait that many did I have, even the older ones? Oh, Obi-Wan? And Obi-Wan's just like, just doesn't react. He's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that moment was weird. It's like,
I'm wondering if that line was not said on the set, and it was added in later in ADR, because that's a weird thing for Obi-Wan not to react to. Although I think it's fair, because this is a conversation. This is the thing I'll say in the next movie probably, but I think Obi-Wan's a little cocky. He's a little cocky.
Yeah,
he's a little cocky boy.
He's a little scamp.
He's a little scampy boy, even when he's in his like late 30s. But I think this whole thing is just an example that the Jedi are fucking terrible, and like Yoda is an incompetent leader. They don't, because like they have like Exhibit A, this whole thing. Like, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that Anakin might be bad news, and instead of doing any follow-up, they instead do nothing. Exhibit B, they're losing their ability to use the Force.
Yeah. And
instead of telling anyone, they instead do nothing.
Yeah, the idea that like the presence of the dark side, you know, looming is starting to cloud everything, and it's just like, so it's been like this long since you've had interactions with like prominent like dark side users. Like, that's interesting. And it kind of,
I think they said it's been a millennium since the Sith were around, right? Isn't that what they said?
Yeah, it kind of,
in the first movie,
it kind of makes me think of Dune, like when they talk about House Atreides and how, like, you know, on Caladan it's basically a paradise there, and like one thing that like the cost of living in a paradise is that like you lose your edge, you lose your ability to like problem solve and like be like ready to do shit because things are easy. And I feel like that is basically what has happened to the Jedi. They've lost the ability to be on their guard for the emergence of evil.
Yeah. It's if only they had 10 years to
figure it
to get back on the horse.
Oh my god. You know, actually, I think this is something that I was thinking about that I don't think I got a chance to bring up in the last pod. With Palpy and just being around, can he just like hide his force useriness? Like, is this like with like Dragon Ball Z when they like learn to hide their power levels, and then all of a sudden they're just like, it's on now, and then you just like blast the person's like power level reading? Because it's like he's always like, he must be have a way to legitimately mask his force useriness.
Yeah, they don't go into any detail. I assume that the reason that the Jedi are having such a hard time being able to see anything because of the dark side clouding things is directly related to Palpatine being able to hide his presence. Although now I'm mixing up my Dragon Ball abridged and Star Wars.
Anakin, I need you to send this frequency to the capital. What's that in your hand? Muffin. Where did you get a muffin on that ship? Muffin button.
All right. Anyway, I assume it's something related to that. They don't get into it. I am less concerned about that because we know that Palpatine is a super powerful Force user. Sure. Probably the most powerful Force user that we ever see in this entire franchise. Sure. Who knows what he's capable of? Like, he might be able to have the ability to just kind of hide himself. I'm less concerned about that. I have other concerns. Sure. There's other things that really bothered me here. And I will talk about them right now because after this, I won't have anything else to talk about until we get to characters. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say this now. So I actually like the concept of Obi-Wan detective. Like going. I like him, following up the clues, stumbling on this conspiracy. The stuff with Camino, I think, is really intriguing. I can legitimately sense the tension upon discovering the whole clone army, and I like all of that. However, the conspiracy that he stumbles across is never fucking addressed. I don't just mean they never explain it, but none of the fucking Jedi ask any goddamn questions in any of these movies. Like, Obi-Wan finds out that a clone army has been commissioned for the Republic, and the cloners say that it was commissioned by Master Sifo Dyas, who he doesn't seem to know too much, but knows that he died either before or around the time this would have happened, and that Jango Fett was hired by someone named Tyrannus. Although I don't think Darth Tyrannus ever gets said in front of him, so he might not be able to put that together. That's Count Dooku,
right?
But here's a great question: who ordered this army? Was it Sifo Dyas? And if he did, why didn't he tell anybody?
Well, like, it sounds like, because he does say, like, didn't he die? Like, this was commissioned 10 years ago. Didn't he die before that? Right. And
that's what he said.
Yeah, and then, like, he's like, did anyone from the Jedi order this? And, like, Mace Windu was like, no, we didn't fucking do it. The end.
This is not resolved in the next movie. We never find out. Okay, in the context of the movie, we never find out what the heck happened if Sifo Dyas. Here's a fun thing. Sifo Dyas apparently was a fun thing that Lucas put in there because he was writing the script and he typoed when he was trying to write Sidious, and he accidentally typed in Sifo Dyas, and then he thought, oh, would it be funny if, like, I used that as a character name? So originally, in his original idea, they would have said, oh, Master Sidious, and that would have been the clue that it would have been Palpatine who did it. But then he made it Sifo Dyas, who is apparently a real guy, but then doesn't explain the relationship between that, because we can assume, especially since Palpatine had control over the clones for Order 66, right? We can assume that whatever was made, how this army came to be, Palpatine was involved, but we don't know how, and also the fact that it's based off a bounty hunter definitely working for Count Dooku. Of course, then that begs the question as to, was Count Dooku, was he working with with Palpatine back then too? Because if that was the case, doesn't that break the rule of two? I don't know.
Yeah, it's the timeline's too tight because 10 years ago was Phantom Menace, and even since then the Star Wars universe has pumped out some was it Tales of the Jedi? Is that those shorts? Have you seen those on Disney?
Oh, was that the thing where it's like here's the origin of baby Ahsoka and also the origin of young man Count Dooku?
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about?
I
actually only saw the first episode and I haven't gotten back around to it.
I've seen them all, and it is kind of them basically, I think, trying to fill out this part of Dooku's story, but the timing of it is just not great, because if for him to be so deep in the pit at that point where he is taking Palpy's full instructions to these people, you're my go-to guy to talk to these people, and here's the specs that I need these clones to have, that seems fast. I don't know, it's weird.
Okay, so this is never answered in this movie, which I find very annoying, but since it's never answered in the next movie, I find it infuriating. However, there is an explanation for it that just doesn't appear. I think that it is covered. The Jedi start asking questions a couple years later during the Clone Wars. So apparently, I think it's covered there on that. But here's how I understand it. Master Sifo Dyas, and it alters the timeline that they said, or at least Obi-Wan is just wrong. But Sifo Dyas apparently was a Jedi Master who his thing was that he could see the future way clearer than a lot of his other contemporaries. So he starts seeing visions of an army that would attack the Republic, and was convinced that meant that the Republic needed to build up its own army. And he took it to the Jedi Council, and the Jedi Council kicked him off the council for suggesting it. And so he went rogue, went to Kamino, or the clone army. Somehow Palpatine finds out about this. And he somehow Palpatine returned to this conversation. And presumably hires Count Dooku, who I'm guessing was kind of like the Asajj Ventress to Palpatine up until Darth Maul dies, and that's when Palpatine starts teaching him Sith stuff. But before this, he's just
side piece.
She's a side piece who doesn't get to actually know any Sith stuff. He gets him to kill Sifo Dyas. He gets killed in a spaceship crash, and then they just kind of slide in and take control of the project. So that is the official explanation of exactly what happened. This is never mentioned in the film. Sifo Dyas is never mentioned again, and that is ludicrous to me. Okay. Anything else that we need to talk about before we get to characters? We're obviously running long.
Lightsabers need Wii controller straps. Imagine how much simpler these fights would be if you just had a Wii controller strap for your lightsaber. Everyone's always just oh, whoop, oh no. I for some reason can't force it back into my hand fast enough. Just Wii controller straps, it would help a lot.
All right, let's talk about characters. And this, I'd love it for us to be able to move quickly through this, but I know that we're not going to be able to.
Well, I think a lot of my points were made, so I think it won't be horrible.
All right, well, we'll see. Well, we'll go through everything here. Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor. I don't have to say too much about him, but I just want to kind of say that I think that Obi-Wan's portrayal here is a tale of two different characters, because I think how he is with Anakin is seeming a little different from how he is normally, but he's kind of, and this is going to happen in the next movie too, where he's kind of on the one hand, he's this super stiff by the rules type of Jedi, but then also, he's having fun. He loves what he's doing. He's having a great time.
When it gets all, hello there.
Oh man, that's the fist pumping moment when he does that in the Obi-Wan TV show. It's we're back. We're back. But his relationship with Anakin is really bad,
Yeah.
and it's not supposed to be. Like they this is a fault of the script. Like they seem like they are just openly hostile to each other. Like obviously Anakin really hates Obi-Wan based on what we hear him say to anyone who'll listen.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like Obi-Wan's that fond of Anakin either.
Yeah.
The next movie does a lot to fix this, and then the Clone Wars their relationship is completely different.
Yeah.
But here it is just kind of bad, which is why I think that Obi-Wan is at his best when he's by himself. When he's with Anakin, he's kind of it's just too much snipping between them to enjoy anything. But when he's like sleuthing around, fighting bounty hunters, and having like one-on-one conversations with Count Dooku, these are all good things. Like the only thing I didn't like about him when he was by himself is when he apparently couldn't figure out why Anakin would be on Tatooine.
I do think that's dumb.
That's odd. Why would he be there? Oh well, none of my business.
I do also, and this is, this like it's not just him, but this is just another good example of I don't understand why people are so dismissive of droids. Because he's talking to Dex.
He hates droids.
Why is he so fucking droid racist? He literally says the phrase, if droids could think, then there would be none of us here, would there be? And it's just like, what? Droids can't think. What are you talking about? You just had a sassy droid racist call you, a sassy droid waitress call you hun. Like...
because this is the, if it wasn't for Clone Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi would be in like my top 3 favorite characters of the franchise, but the Clone Wars really kind of hurts him for me. And one of the things is because he's so dismissive of the possibility of R2 being destroyed or left to drift in space forever, and only cares when he realizes that he might have Republic secrets. But this loyal droid who he's known for 12 years at that point, doesn't care if he lives or dies. This is doesn't care. I think this is all based on the idea that they decided that he did know R2-D2 from back in the day, but apparently didn't remember him when he meets him again in A New Hope. I don't recall owning a droid. And R2's like, "Are you fucking kidding me, man? We saved Naboo together.
we went to war together."
We fought in the Clone Wars together for 4 years. How do you not know who I am? All droids look alike to me.
I can't sleep mode at night without hearing screams of our enemies, yet you can't remember we fought together. Okay.
You should have had a mind wipe. Obi-Wan is racist against droids. It is upsetting. I think I actually will have more to say about Obi-Wan in the next movie, but I just want to say that I do feel like he's actually a character here, when in the last movie he's just kind of like Qui-Gon's appendage.
Just a guy with a rat tail.
I want to talk about Anakin. Hayden Christensen. Interesting. Is kind of an interesting group of people who apparently auditioned for this role. Topher Grace, Joshua Jackson,
sure.
Ryan Felipe,
okay,
Colin Hanks,
what?
Paul Walker.
Sure.
So if he had done this,
he looks the closest. I could very easily picture him.
The timing of this makes me assume that this is either this or the Fast and the Furious. So that's a crazy alternate reality, right?
I mean, he missed out on the galaxy, but he gained a family. So.
Maybe he would have done both, and then Vin Diesel just would have been in the Revenge of the Sith.
Missed opportunities.
Hey, Anakin, I heard you need some help. Leonardo DiCaprio didn't audition. Lucas met with him about the idea of doing it, and DiCaprio just said, "Nah, I don't need it," which is true. I heard him say something like he wasn't sure that he was in the right place to do a role like this at the time, because this is Leonardo DiCaprio, but this isn't like today Leonardo DiCaprio. This is Leonardo DiCaprio with like exactly one monster hit to his name at this point.
Because at this point, what is he? This is like, what? Catch Me If You Can DiCaprio, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, he's not like big star, but he's would be the biggest star in this movie if he had been cast. As far as leading man goes. But yeah, he did. This thing is kind of interesting. Anakin Skywalker is fucking terrible for all the reasons that we said earlier. But one thing that I don't think I touched on as much as I wanted to is just that this movie does a really shitty job of making Anakin's turn to evil feel like the tragedy of Darth Vader. Because you look at this and you're like, yeah, of course this guy becomes evil. He's not good now. Like, he's like the worst.
I wrote while watching, if someone told me this brat ass little shit would be the downfall of the Jedi Order, I'd believe it. Like, it's not hard.
Lucas obviously wanted to put in some foreshadowing for his fall, but forgot to put anything remotely redeemable about him in there as well. So now he just seems barely contained evil, and the fact that he just slaughters a bunch of people and no one calls him on it, it just kind of makes you feel like the movie doesn't quite know what it's doing. Like, like had Padme been terrified and fell away from him after that, I would have been like, okay, the movie at least understands that Anakin is not good. I think the movie thinks he's done a good job in showing Anakin as a heroic guy. Like, see, it's a problem. It's a big problem. It's one of those things that makes it very hard to take the movie seriously. Anakin's a little better in the next movie, and he is perfect in the Clone Wars. Like, the way he's depicted in the Clone Wars cartoon is, because you watch the Clone Wars cartoon, especially in the earlier days, you look at this guy like, how could this guy possibly be Darth Vader? Because this guy is so charming and heroic, and he's like the only Jedi who seems to actually care about people.
Yeah.
And that is why it's the tragedy of Darth Vader, right? So this movie, all he talks about is how powerful he is and how much he hates Obi-Wan Kenobi and how much he's mad that Padme won't fuck him.
And how much, like fascism. Like,
Fascism is good, actually.
If it works.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not very good. Padme? Padme is in this movie. I can't decide if she does more or less in this film than the last one. Because there's a love story here, and whenever she makes a decision, it's overridden by a male character in power. It doesn't feel like she has a ton of agency here.
I mean, they spend the whole movie with her as a damsel in distress, and I feel like they act like they have like done a really great thing with her with that one scene in the pit where she gets a chance to do a little something, like she manages to, get out of the clutches of the big furry thing and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that's cool there in those few little moments where you get her to do a cool thing, although you do also go out of your way to make sure that her clothes get torn off on the way to show midriff, because she also gotta look sexy. And it's just like, George Lucas, you are not doing this great thing for women that I think you think you're doing.
Mm. I feel like we talk a lot about our problems with Padme, so I don't know if we need to spend too much time here.
I will say,
yeah,
because going back to the why the fuck was she a queen of a planet thing, she states as they're hanging out and going back to like the Naboo capital, she says, "I wasn't the youngest queen ever elected." Bitch,
Whoa.
What are your people? It's like, well, the youngest queen elected was 7. Like, what is going on with your people?
She had a very impressive platform of free cookies for everyone.
Like, Jesus
no
Christ.
bedtimes.
It's like,
if I'm elected queen, we can stay up as late as we want, and peace of night is every night.
Vending machines in all hallways at the Capitol. Like, what is happening? Like, how is she not? I just don't understand their society at all.
And I'm pretty sure that the only reason that line was put there was to normalize the idea that a 14-year-old was queen in the first movie, and it just brings up more questions that we don't get answers to.
Yeah. Mission not accomplished.
Ian McDermott, again, Palpatine. again, very solid. I think he is the bridge, like he's the solid foundation of this trilogy, and we're getting closer to his finest work.
Yeah, you notice in this movie he's walking around with his little emperor hands. He's got his little me, and I was like, oh, he's got his emperor hands going.
He's right now he's just gearing up. We're gonna go to 11 with this guy in the next movie, and it's gonna be really fucking good, and I'm really excited.
Tell me the tale of dark Plagueis so wise.
Note from a Jedi. All right. Skip ahead to Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu. Now I think we kind of said our thoughts on Jackson as Mace, so I don't want to repeat that, but I do want to just go ahead and say that Mace Windu is my least favorite Jedi of the ones that regularly appear in these films and in the Clone Wars, all because of the Clone Wars. If it's just the movies, he's inconsistently written. Like I said, he and Yoda shoot down Obi-Wan when he starts to bring up his concerns about Anakin, and like, don't forget he's the chosen one. It's like, what? Aren't you the skeptic? I guess not in this movie, but in the fucking TV show, he is. I think what they envisioned Mace Windu to be like in this film is what he is in the TV show. This completely like stiff, uncompromising, unemotional, like antagonistic type of character who has barely held contempt for Anakin in anything he does, has no sympathy about the fact that he kills Boba Fett's dad, and I was like, so that's why he's trying to kill me, because I killed his father. Anyway, who wants lunch?
Yeah. Although in the cartoon Clone Wars.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh yeah, okay, gotcha.
I was talking about the cartoon, like.
Well, I mean, like the original, like the Cartoon Network.
Cartoon.
That's right. Like, the cartoon.
Oh yeah, you
Clone
mean okay,
Wars.
But they're both cartoons. So I'm sorry.
So
that's why I was confused.
That is hard to like. I should have said the Cartoon Network cartoon, like Clone Wars.
Yeah.
He is such a badass in that, and it's like it's kind of a bummer because obviously no one like speaks like a whole lot in that. Isn't that
show? That's a Genny Tartakovsky.
That's a
trademark.
Yeah. But like he has some amazing fight sequences that are always fun to revisit.
Everyone in that show is so much more badass than any other portrayal they have in there. Like Anakin's amazing. Heck, even
getting leech tattoos and shit.
Even Kit Fisto.
It
has a great shirtless scene as he's swimming and his muscles glistening. This is the only time in the franchise that General Grievous is threatening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. General Grievous is great in that little cartoon.
Yeah, he's terrifying in that. And nothing that the second Clone Wars cartoon did, no matter how they tried, did anything to make him look anything other than Team Rocket.
Yeah. Because he can't. He has, where it's going. Yeah. Although I will hand it to the Clone Wars. It's like, thank goodness that we get to build upon the mystique and legend that is Asajj Ventress.
Yeah. Asajj Ventress is one of the best characters introduced there. The Clone Wars cartoon. So it's so weird because she's in both cartoons. Right.
Yeah.
But like, so much of the first cartoon is disregarded and none of it's canon.
Right.
I'm curious as to like what was the decision to keep her going, because she's not in the movies, so they could have easily just disregarded her.
I think they just was like, this is like, she's really fun to write. I think they were just like, I want to write more of this character.
Yeah. I guess this must be it. Okay. Man, maybe we should watch that as like an episode sometime. Just
yeah, I would super love that.
I don't know where I have to figure out where I can find it. Anyway, let's talk about Count Dooku.
Yeah.
So Christopher Lee is Count Dooku. Now he's not in this movie a ton.
True. Yeah.
But
I don't think I'd remembered how little. Like he shows up pretty late in the game.
Yeah, he's talked about a lot is the thing.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot about Count Dooku that we never find out in this movie or the next one.
Right. Got to keep that in mind.
And it's a little hard to tell when he's talking to Obi-Wan how much he is lying and how much he's telling the truth. I personally believe that this was Count Dooku's join me and we'll rule the galaxy. I mean, it's obviously supposed to be that line, but I think it literally is him trying to make a play for Obi-Wan to help him kill Palpatine. Like, I think that is his actual plan there. But I don't think he was like simply lying to throw him off. I think he's legitimately like, hey, if you help me kill him, maybe I'll teach you some secrets later when you trust me more. Wink, wink. That's
yeah, the way he talks about Qui-Gon, because like it is revealed that Qui-Gon was his Padawan.
Yeah.
And he has a moment of just like, he like says that he wishes he could talk to him right now, and he has a moment of like just like legit sadness.
Yeah.
That Qui-Gon is gone, and I think with that I can believe that like his love for his old Padawan does translate through to his grand Padawan. I don't know. And like I think like maybe he does legitimately want to, like, because it's hard because like I have to like separate other canon that has been created after this moment, and so like I have to like not get into the insights that people give him later.
Yeah. Okay. Like, let me put this. Like, when I first saw this movie, this is my interpretation of Count Dooku. He is working with Palpatine. He has become a Sith, but I think his ultimate goal is to eventually destroy the Sith. I think that is legitimately his plan. I think that as a very powerful Jedi, he has the same thing that other powerful Jedi have, and that's complete and ridiculous arrogance in what they can and cannot handle. I think he dipped too far into the deep side of the pool, and he hasn't realized that he's drowning yet, and then gets beheaded before it really comes to a head. That's how I interpret it. I interpret it as him being like, because we know he's a Jedi. We know he left the Jedi Order. We don't know why. We don't know anything like that. But I just kind of got the idea that he wasn't like as pure evil as Palpatine. That he may have had good intentions that, because they're fueled by emotions, ended up swallowing him up, as is the danger of using emotions. That was my interpretation. Having watched the Clone Wars cartoon, none of that shit's true. He's as evil as evil can be.
And that's the thing, because like I think he is known, by the Jedi Order to be a separatist, and even with all that, they don't. I mean, at least Mace Windu doesn't seem to think he's a bad guy who can't, like, apparently he can't be doing evil shit according to him because he used to be a Jedi. So like, it sounds like even though he left and became a separatist, he must have had an argument that at least seemed not crazy and evil sounding, Yeah. Like apparently his leaving had to be relatively like, no, that's fair, dude. And I mean, I guess see ya. So that is something. Yeah. I would, if you ever, whenever you get around to watching the other Tales of the Jedi, or whatever the crap, I would be interested in hearing what you think about the other Dooku episodes.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, because I haven't looked at that stuff, so I don't know if they go deeper into it. Because I might be completely off my rocker with information that's now canon. I just haven't watched it, so I don't know.
Well, no, I think the Tales of the Jedi go more into the view that you kind of glimpsed from this, as opposed to the super evil stuff that you see in the Clone Wars show. So like,
he's so evil in there. He's so evil.
Yeah, I think there is more of like what leads him to the path of going in this direction, more in those shorts. Right.
There's one thing I want to mention about Dooku, and if you want to talk more about him, that's fine. But I just want to point out that this is the first time where it and it's not even really explicitly said here, like the whole Force lightning thing. I don't know how much that has been codified as being a dark side power at this point, other than just being a power that an incredibly powerful Force user has. And even the way they talk about it in this movie, they're not seeing him shoot lightning going like, oh, he's using dark side magic. It's like, look how powerful in the Force I am, that sort of thing. I think that the idea of lightning being a Sith power, probably because of how aggressive it is something that kind of gets codified like as this movie comes out, like in the immediate aftermath of this film. Since we'd only ever seen one person in the movie do it. Now, expanded universe probably touched on it a bit more. I believe the evil Jedi that is like the villain of the Heir of the Empire, I think he shoots lightning. So that's, but he's also not a Sith. Sith hasn't been invented yet, so that's not a Sith power. So I don't know. Obviously, that was all thrown out and doesn't count as canon. And even at this point in 2002, like George Lucas did not give two shits about what they did in Heir of the Empire when making this movie. But I just think it's kind of interesting by the dialogue. It's like, oh yeah, you know what? I don't know if it was an evil power yet. Meanwhile, today I play Star Wars: The Old Republic, and that is explicitly an evil Sith power that you have.
I feel like between the lightning-ish and he's got a red lightsaber, like, I mean, come on.
I'm 100% certain that they understand that he's a Sith. Like by the time that last fight happens, right? But like, even he himself does not identify himself as a Sith. Like he doesn't identify his powers as Sith powers. He identifies his powers as being advanced Jedi skills.
Let me slowly drop pieces of wall on you. Ah! Ah!
All right, anything else about Count Dooku?
It's just Christopher Lee's so fucking metal.
He is metal. Oh my god, he is like the most metal actor that has ever existed in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I am not just saying shit. Like, guys, look up Christopher Lee's life. Not only is it going to be super fascinating, you're going to be very surprised when you get to the music section.
Oh my god, I have a Christmas playlist on Spotify that I love very much, and you best believe Christopher Lee's Jingle Hell is in there.
There's not a whole lot of other characters to talk too much about. Yoda, Frank Oz. Frank Oz, he's very good. Frank Oz has never, I think maybe had like one or two not great performances as Yoda. This was not one of them. He's good here for sure. Yoda feels so incompetent, so ridiculously so. Like, people complained about what Luke does in The Last Jedi, like how he's just kind of turned his back on the galaxy and has nothing but contempt for the Jedi. And then when you watch this movie, you're like, Luke was right. It was time for the Jedi to end.
There's two things that like I think it's dysfunctional and they should stop trying to do it. The Jedi Order and the Republic. Like, I do not think it works. I think the galaxy is way too big to just like have all these people. Like, when you have, once again, thousands of solar systems trying to lead the Republic, something has gone. It's too many freaking people. It's too much.
But yeah, I don't really have anyone else I really want to talk about, but I do want to give a shout out.
Yeah.
And then you can, if you want to hop, do you want to hop on something about Yoda?
Oh, yes. I super hate his little battle cries as they fight.
Oh my god, I actually forgot about the goddamn Yoda with a fucking lightsaber.
Yeah,
let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, the lightsaber fight that as a youth, as an adolescent, I was like, I fucking hate this.
Yeah, I felt like I was the only person in the theater who didn't like it because everyone else was like, oh yeah, and I was looking going like, this seems so unnecessary. I actually would have preferred Mace Windu have a sword fight with Count Dooku, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah,
I just didn't need to see that from Yoda.
Because it's already hard enough where you have to like obviously get a stunt double for Christopher Lee. Like, you already have to like suspend some belief, because I think it's easier to accept when it's like a cartoon version of the characters, where it's just like, the Force is strong, they can like fight for a long time into old age because they're powerful. It's a little bit harder in live action where you see Christopher Lee and it's just like
I hated it at the time. I'm less mad about it now just because it's been so long.
Yeah.
And it's like, of all the things in this movie,
There's so many things.
but there's one thing that I just has stayed with me. It actually came across it again when doing research for the film for this week. So it brought the fire back. But in the post run, I think it was in the theaters. I think it was also for a home video release. There was a commercial that was specifically. Oh God! By the way, like the line where it was like, "We have to decide this not by our skill in the Force, but our skill with a lightsaber." I feel like that line was only there so that anyone in the theater who didn't know would have a 2-second period to be hype. But there's an advertisement that happened after the film came out where it was all about Yoda using a lightsaber, and it was the worst advertisement in the history. Here's how it said: "Who the man? Yoda man." I remember when I saw that back then. I decided it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. And maybe I'm not quite as hurt now, but it's still awfully dumb. I don't think that we can assume George Lucas had anything to do with that, because like at some point the advertisement is just not necessarily going to be in his hands, especially in a post movie release. He's probably at that point busy trying to figure out what's going on with episode 3.
Yeah.
But someone deserves a punch in the throat for that. All right. Okay, I'm done. Anyone else you want to talk about?
Any other characters?
Any characters you want to talk about? Yes.
All right. I would like to give a shout out to our first appearance of Bail Organa. I think this is the first appearance of Bail Organa.
God damn it! I'm sorry. That was the guy who I wanted to talk about. I got so mad about Yoda.
Yeah, sir.
Is my buddy. My Jimmy Smits. Jimmy Smits.
Who I feel like is this like after Palpy and good old Boba Fett, Bail Organa making those appearances again and again. Jimmy Smits getting that money.
Man, this is my first experience with Jimmy Smits. So I although I didn't realize it. Here's the funny story about me and Jimmy Smits. So the first time I ever understood who Jimmy Smits was in a season of the TV show Dexter, where he plays the villain one season.
Oh, I bet that's good.
He's quite good. I don't know if that's one of people's favorite seasons or not. I think it's one of the ones they don't like. But I really like the back and forth between him and Dexter in that season. And then that's when I started noticing him. Like he has such an impression on me. So like he's in Sons of Anarchy as well. He plays a pretty important role in that in later seasons. And then I go back and rewatch Attack of the Clones after this, and I'm like, Jimmy Smits? Jimmy Smits. So nowadays, anytime I see Jimmy Smits, that's always my reaction. It's like I never expect him. Oh, my man, Jimmy Smits.
Yeah.
Making that money.
Yeah.
Fun trivia. He was actually arrested for a portion of this film.
Oh.
Apparently, he was protesting. He was protesting something in Puerto Rico.
Good for him.
And a lot of celebrities got arrested like there. So he wasn't like doing anything bad, but he was in jail like at some point during the filming of this. But yeah. Jimmy Smits goes on to play Bail, like you implied, several times over the course of this franchise, and he's always a welcome addition.
Yeah, get that money, motherfucker. Timur Morrison, who this is his first, technically his first appearance in the Star Wars world. God,
he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like, so he's Jango Fett here. He'll go on to be, Boba Fett later. He's gonna be in the new Ahsoka series as Rex. So really gets to benefit the whole clone thing.
Man, I think I forgot about that. I don't love that.
Yeah, he too is making that money.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a bummer. I'll mention it here because, I guess we could talk about it next episode, but my problem with him is that he is not I don't think he's as good and a performer as the guy who plays all the clones in the Clone Wars cartoon. And so
Yeah.
I'm so used to that. I think D. Bradley Baker is fucking great as the clones in the Clone War. And like his greatest work has been the Bad Batch, where he actually gets to play a variety of different types of characters as opposed to like subtle differences of the same guy. You know, it's like actual different characters.
Yeah.
And I think he's really good, and I think he's better than the actual guy from the live action version. So every time I see Morrison like anywhere, I'm just thinking like, man, D. Bradley Baker is just not as good. But you're not going to have D. Bradley Baker play these guys in live action now, so it's not. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. I think, and it's something I just want to say.
Yeah, the amount of character work that is made, on the benefits of the clones in Clone Wars and in Bad Batch, it's really compelling. It's because you're not gonna get that here because it's confusing why they're here in the first place, and you don't get answers.
Yeah, I think we're probably gonna have more to say about that in the next one, because the next one technically is gonna take place during the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So we can probably talk a little bit more about that. All right, I think we gotta move forward. So unless you're burning to talk about somebody, we gotta move forward.
Okay. Well, Rose Byrne shows up. She is another fake Padme.
Which one is she?
Dorme. So she's the one who talks with her the most. The
one who cries.
Yeah. When Padme is like, I'm gonna go run off and pretend to escape from here and pretend to be a refugee in really outrageously nice royal clothes, which don't get me started with that. It's like, I'm gonna essentially wear a crown while I pretend to be a refugee, like escaping this area. It doesn't make any sense. But so like, shout out Rose Byrne. I also the one who actually gets killed at the beginning, because she's still doing her little, human shield bodyguards, and who is Corday, and as she's dying, she's like, "I'm sorry, I failed you." To which I'm like, "Well, I mean, you're dying, and Padme's not, so I think mission accomplished. I think that's what she wanted for you. Reconsider your job choices." And then one last thing, I just wanted to shout out the actor who's playing like the current Naboo Queen Jamelia. So this is Aisha Darker, who is an actor. I've just been like rewatching season 4 of Doctor Who, the Donna episodes, and she's in an episode of Doctor Who. She's in the Planet of the Ood episode. And so I just wanted to shout her out and like, girl, you got a little Star Wars money. Good for you.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's kind of the benefit of hiring a ton of British actors like for your film. Some of them will eventually be on Doctor Who. Yeah. Because every British actor eventually is on Doctor Who.
Yeah. All right. That was my last one.
All right. Anything burning that you need to talk about before we wrap things up?
I wanted to die every time C-3PO spoke.
Holy shit. Oh my god. I would have been okay with C-3PO except for the So, okay. We didn't talk about Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks is barely in this movie, probably because of the backlash from the first one. He has an important role, as he's the one that caused for emergency powers to go to the Chancellor, but he is not doing much more than that. So because he's not there, there's a hole for the slapstick that George Lucas decided he needed to fill, and decided that C-3PO would be the perfect replacement, and has the entire sequence of 3PO in trouble in the droid factory is just a ridiculous amount of garbage. And then the worst part of the movie. It's the worst part of the movie. I can't believe I didn't mention it till this now. So basically, C-3PO's head gets put onto a battle droid body, and then his body has a battle droid head put on it. And it has like the best line where he says, "Die Jedi dogs." That's a good line. But then he gets his head knocked off, and R2 drags him to reattached into his body, and just the sheer amount of fucking puns in that brief sequence. He just snap, 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 one after the other. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's a pun machine gun, and it is awful.
Oh God, I can't believe someone did this. I can't believe a human being actually did this and thought it would be good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling really beside myself. Fuck you, George Lucas. This is the first time I'm actually saying that. Not because of the quality of the film, not because of any things that he said or done, but because of this specific thing. All those puns. There's too much. God damn it.
You have to go back and check what you wrote while you were doing cocaine. You always have to go back and check. You can't.
This is such a drag.
You can't just trust that you wrote good things. You gotta double check.
There was 3 versions of the script. Like there's 3 revisions, and a second person worked on it. The third one, and everyone was just like, "This is fine." You know what? I don't know that George Lucas wrote that part. For all I know, it was the guy who did the third version. I'm blanking on his name suddenly. Jonathan Hales, who I mentioned before. Might have been Jonathan Hales. In that case, fuck you, Jonathan Hales. One of you fucked up, and I don't know which one, but one of you did. All right. We are so over time, so we got to... Oh, that's not as bad as I thought, but still, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
we got to wrap it up. All right, Ariel, what would you give Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones? Oh, hey, terrible name, right? Absolutely shitty name.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was another thing that I remember just being like, this isn't the right name for this.
This is the worst name of the franchise. I decided that I think it's, you know what? I think the name might actually still be better than Rise of Skywalker, because Rise of Skywalker just doesn't make any sense.
That's true.
At least there are clones attacking in this.
That is true.
But it's still a bad name. I can't believe George Lucas wrote that. Ewan McGregor found out about the name during an interview when someone asked him about it, and he thought that they were talking about a bad movie that he hadn't seen. And then when he realized it was the movie for Episode 2, he was like, "Wow, that's terrible."
Oh no.
Okay. Anyway, what would you give Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones? Aside from this name, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb somewhere in the middle.
I'm not even gonna joke about it. Thumbs down.
Yeah, no, thumbs down. This is a bad movie. This is the worst Star Wars movie, in fact.
I don't even have jokes about it. Just thumbs down.
There's people will say things about the sequel trilogy that I don't agree with. Some things I do agree with. And people will say a lot of things about The Rise of Skywalker, because it is definitely a disappointing of a movie. But Attack of the Clones is absolutely the worst. People say Solo is the worst. Solo is 1,000 times more enjoyable than this film in every category. Yeah. What the fuck are you talking about?
You could actually have fun watching the Solo movie. You legitimately cannot have fun watching this movie unless you're like already under the influence of something else, and that doesn't count.
If you're high, everything's fun. But it's not as boring as The Phantom Menace, but it makes up for it by being worse written and having some of having the least compelling romance in the history of cinema, and then a lot of other annoying things, a pile of them on top of that. But the main problem is that it's just a very poorly performed love story by 2 under-realized characters. And no matter how bad any of the Disney films are, every single one of them are better than this film. And the people who say that they think this movie is one of the better ones, I immediately am like, your taste is bad. Mm-hmm. I know stuff is subjective and it's not fair for me to rag on someone for something they like. But if you love Attack of the Clones and think it is legitimately one of the best movies of like that has ever been produced under the Star Wars name, watch some fucking better movies. Like maybe watch some, like go to your local indie theater and watch some foreign films or something. Like this gets some fucking culture in your life. This movie stinks.
Yeah. Just this is a yum I will yuck. You can't you can't live this way.
All right, so obviously next time we're going to be doing Revenge of the Sith, and we kind of already showed our hand. Revenge of the Sith is my favorite of the 3 prequel movies. I say the first one's boring, the second one's bad, third one it's pretty good. Is what my memory of it is.
This is the one movie I actually have watched since it coming out and stuff. So like that is saying something.
I think there's reasons for why it's the best one. And we'll go through it, but there's also problems. There's a lot of problems with this movie. Like, I'll just say right now, how come having the high ground is good for Obi-Wan in this movie when it wasn't good for Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace? If you guys want to yell at me for my comments about your taste in movies, again, adultsiblingsversus@gmail.com. We're at Instagram at adultsiblingsversus, and we are at X at adult versus. You can X at us at xxxcdx. Extreme. Our theme song is Sell Out by Zombie Apocalypse Now from the EP Forbidden Tales of Science. You can find that and more at antizombierock.bandcamp.com. All right. You know what? I don't even have it in me to ask you a question this week because I'm so upset about both this movie and with X. So instead, we're just going to sign off. So next week is Revenge of the Sith. And until then, as always, please do not put a dirty sock in your somebody's mouth.
Yeah. I killed them. They're dead. Not just the men, but the women and the children. I slaughtered them like animals. Hey, so, you want to get out of here or something? Like, yeah, like, let's, like, go do something, huh?
Oh boy, he's fucking incels.